So can I just go back? I want to ask you more about that and like the place of neoconservatives. And I guess we're not even to use that term. So think of a new term as I ask.
All right, I will.
But before we get to that, like you mentioned Russiagate a couple of times and the hacking and the subsequent leaking of those emails from the DNC. Who did that?
It's possible, of course, that the Russians did it. Like sometimes you get the official story and it's possible. You know, I know Julian Assange a long time. I know him very well. And
what a good man.
Oh, I think he's like one of the heroes of our lifetime. I
totally agree.
And not just a hero, but like incredibly consequential.
And just a decent person too.
And like brilliant and courageous.
I agree.
Not without his personality flaws, but oftentimes that kind of courage. Whenever people used to complain about Julian's difficult personality, let's use the generous term difficult personality, I would always say, like, who do you think is going to go and like spill the secrets of the world's most powerful government? You think it's going to be some like mild-mannered, like gentle, congenial person? No, it takes a certain personality type.
Yes.
And but in any event, he had insinuated several times that it came from within the DNC. He had raised the possibility that Seth Rich was murdered because he was the leaker. And
it was Julian, it was WikiLeaks who ran those docs.
It was WikiLeaks who received them.
Yeah, but who shared them with the world.
Who then published them all, exactly.
So it's not a small thing when the guy who runs WikiLeaks suggests something.
Correct. That said, if you are the recipient of leaks, as I've been many times, you don't actually know who you're not sure if the person bringing you the leaks is the person who actually engineered it. That could be a go-between. And but at the same time, Julian is extremely smart. I talked to him this day. He's, I think, not fully recovered. He'll never be. I mean, after what he went through, but his brain is, just like a font of insight. And I trust his judgment so much. You can go back and look at stuff he said, and it proved to be so prescient.
I know.
And so when he says that, I do think Julian sees himself, for good reason, as an enemy of the intelligence agencies in the West. I mean, he is that. So undoubtedly.
Well, he did like 7.5 years in confinement because of it?
Yeah, like 8 years in the Ecuadorian embassy and then 4.5 years in the prison that the BBC calls the British Guantanamo.
And so Mike Pompeo, the head of CIA, plotted his assassination. So I think
plotted his assassination, badgered the Ecuadorians into lifting the asylum they had given him and promised him, and allowed the London police to go in and, coerced, threatened, bribed the Ecuadorians to lift that grant of asylum so that they could then go in and Mike Pompeo in his first month as CIA director gave a speech saying, we're going to destroy WikiLeaks. It's time that they stop hiding behind the First Amendment. So he was very serious about that.
Mike Pompeo should be charged with plotting someone's assassination. That's a crime. You can't do that in the United States.
I mean, there's so many things Mike Pompeo should be charged with, but we know for certain that he was he was the CIA director thinking, oh, now I get to murder people who I want.
Yeah, who embarrassed me, who've never been charged.
Not who committed crimes.
He'd never been charged with a crime in the United States
until 2018,
right?
When they engineered this, obscenely baseless indictment that they knew they never wanted to bring him to the United States to stand trial. He would never have been convicted. They wanted to break him psychologically and physically, and they came very close to doing that. But in any event, so when Julian Assange says something like that, part of me knows that he views himself as an enemy of the intelligence agencies and wants to use the same methods they use, which is sometimes you spread disinformation for confusion. But I also believe that he believes there's something to it. And so we never had a real investigation into anything relating to Russiagate at all, because in the first term, Trump was, that whole administration was commandeered. It was run by people who were opposed to Trump's agenda for the most part. And part of this new administration is constructed to avoid that from happening. And I think they are now going back and looking at a lot of these things.
So we're not positive if cryptocurrency is the future of finance, but we do know that what we have now is broken and dangerous. Debt has never been higher in this country. Many of our so-called leaders are getting rich, serving you. It's a scam. So where does it go? Well, thankfully, there are options. Donald Trump has said repeatedly he wants the United States to be the crypto capital of the world. He's already created the Crypto Advisory Council and recently signed an executive order to establish a Bitcoin strategic reserve. This could give normal people an alternative to the government's failing system and frankly to the US dollar. I'm not saying put all your money outside the US dollar, but like, don't be crazy. Don't be stupid here. You can see where it's going. So the people at I Trust Capital can help you get in to this. It's complicated for people who aren't following it. They make it easy. They're based 100% in the United States of America. We looked into this. They service only American investors, and they operate the only platform that allows you to buy and sell crypto 24/7, both inside and outside of your tax-advantaged IRA. And it all happens on one easy-to-use dashboard. They also operate a closed-loop system, meaning that bad actors can't access your account and steal your money. So if you're considering adding Bitcoin, if you want to, or some other cryptocurrency to your portfolio, iTrust can be trusted, and it's easy to understand. iTrustCapital.com or click the link below. What do you think the chances are that those emails came from a DNC employee?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't like to. I'm open to it. I'm definitely open to it, but I'm not going to affirm it.
I think it's very strange.
It's probable.
I got from an MPD, Metropolitan Police Department officer who was a friend of mine, the fact, which I've checked, which is that the FBI immediately took over the murder investigation. Now, why would the FBI
of a supposedly routine, random
attempted
DC
robbery
type attempted robbery?
Why would the FBI take that over?
Right.
Like, is there a good reason for that? That's bizarre.
Yeah, I know. That's why I say I'm open to it, even though that's been something that is immediately branded like such an obvious conspiracy theory that the second you suggest that you're receptive to it. But that's exactly when conspiracy theories are often ones that deserve attention.
I don't know. An American citizen got murdered in my city, and so I feel like I have an absolute right to ask, why did the FBI take that over, and what did they learn, and like, what is that? That's a totally fair question. They don't. It's so funny. They set themselves up as the arbiters of everything. Is the moral arbiters for sure, and you're like not allowed to ask that question. It's like, I spent my life in DC. I know the street he was shot on. He's an American just like me. I have absolutely a fundamental right to ask, like, and same with Epstein. Why wasn't there a real investigation into this? And like, this seems anomalous. Like, what's the answer?
Well,
shut up.
And then the tactic is by like the Ben Shapiro's of the world and the people who are the people who have anointed themselves to be the guardians of official versions, or no challenging any sorts of like, why did the USS Liberty happen? Those kind of things. Like what happened with JFK?
My favorite was, why was JFK murdered? I don't care. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was so long ago. Yeah, it was a long time ago. A president got murdered. Mock that now as just asking questions. They'll be, it's like, I don't know. I feel like my job as like not just a journalist, but a human being and a citizen is like, I kind of want to be asking questions. I don't want to just be ingesting what I'm told, because what we've been told has been proven to be deliberate lies so often.
Also, I like people who ask questions. I'm uncomfortable with people who make declarative statements exclusively, because you actually don't know the answer to most things. Like I said, where do you think those emails came from? Podesta's emails, DNC emails. And you're like, I don't really know, but here are the questions that I have. Like, that's the honest answer.
Well, also, you know how many times, not just in politics where deliberate lies happen, but in every field of discipline, like physics and chemistry and biology, everything, linguistics, where a certain time arrives and people believe they've discovered an absolute proven truth. Yes. And by the next generation, it's completely debunked. Yeah. Like if you don't have, and that's why I believe in the absolute necessity of preserving the right to question everything.
That's the scientific method.
Yeah. And it's just basic humility. It's like to think that human beings have discovered unchallenged truths that can never be disproven and that from here henceforth, you're not allowed to question. No, I'm not accepting that from anybody.
Oh, I want to print that and put it on my fridge.
I'll sign it for you.
Good. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So
let me do the Epstein. Do you want to talk about the Epstein files in relation to that as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
just because I just find the Epstein files so fascinating, because all the people who are now in charge of the government under Donald Trump, particularly Kash Patel and Dan Bongino at the FBI, but others as well throughout the government, were over the last 4 years, everywhere in the media, on their shows, on every other show, banging on the table, demanding the immediate release of all the Epstein files. We're now 5 months into the Trump administration. We haven't gotten a single document that wasn't previously published of the Epstein files. They made a humiliating showing of pretending to release it when they called those conservative influence, and they all waved around the binder, Epstein files. We're like, oh my God, what was in them? And then it turns out like nothing. Just every document that was in this binder was already previously released as part of the litigation or journalism that was done. And the Pam Bondi's new excuse, because I'm glad that there are a lot of people in the Trump movement and the MAGA movement who are not contrary to how they're depicted in some sort of cult. Like they hold these people accountable. Like they want to understand, like, we were promised these things. Like, why isn't this happening? And so Pam Bondi's excuse now is we have thousands and thousands of sex videos of Jeffrey Epstein having sex with minors, implying that it's obviously going to take a lot of time to go through these videos, and therefore we have to be patient before we get them. And it's like, I don't care about sex videos of Jeffrey Epstein having sex with children, because we already know that Jeffrey Epstein had sex with children. That's kind of the reason we know who he is. He's been twice charged with that, once convicted, and then was ready to be charged again. For me, the two biggest issues are there people to whom he trafficked minors because he was charged with sex trafficking, but nobody has been charged with being the recipient of that sex trafficking. But the much more interesting question for me is, and there's a lot of reason to believe it's true, is, was he working with or for any foreign intelligence agency?